What's up, Flick Connection? This is Darren, and today I want to tell you about the best sci-fi movies you can currently watch on Amazon Prime for free. So I do these lists a lot about Netflix movies, but I find there's a lot of really good picks on Amazon Prime as well. So if you're not a Prime member, you can't watch these movies for free, but definitely watch this video anyway, or at least most of it, because you'll get a good idea of how many good movies there actually are on this platform. In my opinion, it's well worth the expense. It's cheaper than Netflix. There's not as many titles on it, but there's potentially as many good titles worth watching on it. As usual, this is a top 10 list, so with number 10, I'm going to go with Predestination starring Ethan Hawke. Now, this is a fairly small movie, didn't get a lot of buzz, got a little bit, but not a lot, but it's a really cool sort of time travel movie. It's very well done, low budget, but very, very crisp, very, very solid, very, very well constructed in terms of kind of knowing what's going on as long as you're keeping up with it. It's got a really bizarre twist in it. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. It makes this movie a little bit hard to recommend with the twist, just not knowing kind of who you are watching this, but that's why it's at number 10. If it wasn't for that, I would definitely put this higher because it was really well done, but it's well worth the watch. I paid to watch this one and didn't feel ripped off at all, and you can watch it for free if you have Amazon Prime. Number 9 is one I really liked when it came out. Unfortunately, it just hasn't hung in there as like a good solid one to watch over and over again. But that's Aeon Flux with Charlize Theron. This was a cool sci-fi flick. The production design is better than the movie as a whole. In other words, it is not greater than the sum of its parts, and I think that's what really makes a great movie. So this one fails in that respect, but it's still a really cool sci-fi movie to watch. She's fantastic in it. It looks great. It's a good enough story, and it's one of those kind of cool movies that you maybe saw 10 years ago and forgot about it, or you just missed it altogether and have never seen it because no one's talking about it, but it's well worth watching if you're into that sort of thing. And I think most people are into Charlize Theron in skin-tight black clothing and sort of a futuristic sci-fi flick. Like, most people would be into that. Number 8, this is actually a HBO original movie, so if you have HBO, you could watch this as well. It's called Frequently Asked Questions About Time Travel. Now, this is a very, very small movie because it was made directly for HBO, but it's very funny, it's very well done. Some of the graphics and special effects aren't great because it's essentially a made-for-TV movie, but it's so funny and so rewatchable that it beats out 2 bigger movies at the number 8 spot. So if you like sort of the time travel movies, even if you're just a fan of like Back to the Future, you'll love a lot of the references in this movie because it's a lot of fun. I would say if you like some of the early Edgar Wright movies, like Shaun of the Dead, At World's End, Hot Fuzz, this one's not as good as those, but it's similar in a lot of ways, and the humor is at least similar in a lot of ways. So that's a good reason to watch this one, but one of the funnier ones on this list for sure. Now, at number 7, with one of the cheesier ones on this list, I'm going to go with Jean-Claude Van Damme in TIMECOP. Now, this was just like an ultimate 90s movie. JCVD is in it with the splits and the time travel and the really weird vehicles. I don't know why the cars in this movie look as weird as they do, but this is just a cool throwback. It's not very good, but it's very enjoyable to watch. It's very retro at this point. A lot of people liked it when it came out, and it's not... It is horrible. It's horrible. I was almost said it's not horrible. It's horrible, but it's really fun. It's really fun to watch. It's well worth watching. And if you enjoyed this one, you can also check out the new Amazon Prime series, Jean-Claude Van Johnson. I watched the pilot already. The entire season's about to start airing. It's really funny, especially if you're a fan of his. A lot of the humor is really, really good. Some of the other story elements in the pilot, at least, didn't seem to be great, but the humor is really funny in this one, like I said, especially if you're sort of a fan of his older movies. And number 6, I'm going to go a little obscure with Young Ones. Now, I say obscure, but this one does star Nicholas Hoult, Michael Shannon, and it is a cool sort of dystopian future type movie. It takes place kind of out in this sort of desert land because it's sort of like a new Dust Bowl in the not so far off future. And it's a really cool movie. Now, it's kind of grim. It's kind of got that small indie vibe, meaning it's slow, but it's interesting and it's different and it's well worth watching for that reason. And chances are 9 out of 10 people watching this video have not seen it. So if you have Amazon Prime, definitely pick this one up because you can't really watch it anywhere else at the moment. Now, one of the crazier ones on this list is number 5. It's called Afflicted. Now, this is sort of a found footage type movie, which I agree is getting stale and old, but this one's really well done. It's got more action in it than most other movies in the genre, and I almost shouldn't have said that because you are going to be surprised by the action in it because it's a sleeper. You don't know it's coming. You don't know the rails are about to come off and it's about to just get crazy on you. But I have to sell it that way because a lot of people miss this one. So I have to pitch it that way so you'll go watch it. But this one's crazy. This one is not one for the kids. But I really don't want to tell you too much about what it's about. But it is just a bonkers, violent, found footage sci-fi horror flick. It's really, really cool, so definitely check this one out if you're into that sort of thing, like me. Number 4, not in love with this one, but it really is better than 5 or 6 that I just mentioned, and that's Star Trek Beyond. I really wanted a lot more for this movie. It didn't meet expectations, but it had really high expectations because the other two in the Star Trek reboot were so good. This one just fell a little flat, but it's still a pretty solid flick, and you can currently watch it for free if you have Amazon Prime. I do want to take this opportunity to say I am in no way sponsored by Amazon Prime at the moment. This is not a pitch. I happen to really like the service. I get a lot out of it. I get a lot of movies and a lot of shows out of having that as a service. Plus, I get free shipping from Amazon all the time. So I recommend it for that reason. But I think a lot of people don't realize how many movies are missing out on with the service because it's not advertised that well. So I want to share that with you here. But let's move on to number 3 with 10 Cloverfield Lane. I loved this movie. It's another sort of sleeper. You don't really realize where it's going to go and what it's going to do. It really surprised me. I kind of knew some things going into it, but it still really surprised me, shocked me. I know a lot of people saw this one. It did fairly well in the theaters. To me, it looks like the start of a whole new series. At this point, I will go watch anything with the name Cloverfield in it. They could get 4 or 5 really bad movies out of me, and I'm going to go see them just in the hopes that it's half as good as this one was. I was really surprised at how well they did with sort of such a small idea. But I'm a nut for the Twilight Zone, the old Twilight Zone, and this movie was just like a 90-minute Twilight Zone episode shot with modern digital cameras, with modern technology. So I loved every minute of it. If you miss that one and you're a fan of the Twilight Zone, it is a must-watch. Number 2, everybody's favorite, The Truman Show. I fit this in under sci-fi because it is science fiction. The technology and everything really, it is a science fiction story. It doesn't really line up with some of the other ones on the list, but everybody loves this movie. It's one of those movies almost everybody has seen, but it's very, very rewatchable. Later on in his career, not a big fan of Jim Carrey's work, for whatever reason, a variety of reasons maybe. But this is one of his standout movies. It really is one of his best. It's fun to watch, and I think one of the most interesting things about this movie is I really feel like most people, if not everybody, gets that feeling at some point in their lives, like that not just that they're being watched, but that they're like everything's for them, that it's on they're on a show, and not in a narcissistic sense, at least not for me, but in a sort of spooky, what if that was the case sense, when coincidences and things happen. So I love this movie. So many great moments in it. Just talking about it now, I'm going to have to watch it again sometime soon. And at number 1, one of the best sci-fi movies to come out in recent years, Arrival. This one really just stood out. It's very rewatchable, even though, it starts off very grim. To me, this is one of the most Christopher Nolan-esque movies that was not directed by Christopher Nolan. So that part of it's fascinating to me. The performances are great. The story's great. I really like everything about this movie, except for some of the key elements. I didn't like the design of the creatures. I'm not a big fan of Amy Adams. I didn't really like how it started, but the guts of this movie really worked really well for me, and it just was glued together so well. Denis Villeneuve, I think I'm saying that right, just directed Blade Runner 2049, which I really loved. I think it's one of the better movies of the year. I think Arrival was one of the better movies of last year. So it's certainly one of the better movies, bar none, currently available on Amazon Prime. You can watch it now for free if you have Amazon Prime. If you like this list, definitely give this video a thumbs up. It helps more people see it, and it lets me know I should do more videos about Amazon's video service and the things that you can watch on it. But thanks for watching, and you will see me next time.